Introduction: the mystery within the walls of the abbey. A language no one was meant to speak, not peasants, not priests, not kings. In the 12th century, one woman defied silence. Her name was Hildegard of Bingen. Within the stone walls of her abbey, she whispered and sang a secret tongue, Lingua Ignota, the unknown language. It wasn't meant for trade or war. It was for something higher, a bridge between the divine and the human. Today, we enter that world. Walk with me through history, shadow, and song. What did it mean to speak in a language no one else understood? This is not a palace. It's not a cathedral. It's a fortress of contemplation. In Hildegard's time, an abbey was a paradox, silence, yet full of voices. Obedience, yet filled with vision. These halls were alive with prayers, chants, herbs, ink, and dreams. Women who were told to be quiet found a place to speak, even if that speech came in codes, colors, and music. To understand Lingua Ignota, we must understand this place. The walls held more than stone, they held revolution in silence. Hildegard of Bingen was not just a nun. She was a composer, a writer, a scientist, a prophet. She wrote about medicine, astronomy, theology, and invented a language. In an age where most women weren't taught to read, she wrote entire books. Popes listened to her. Emperors asked her advice. And yet, she chose to hide something, Lingua Ignota, within her music and prayers. Was it protection? Power? Or a code sent only to heaven? Her mystery wasn't just in what she said, but in how she chose to say it. Interview Sister Aurelia, 1174 AD. We spoke as the world expected us to, softly, obediently. But inside, there was music. Words we were never taught, but felt. Sister Hildegard said they came from visions. When she taught us the lingua, it wasn't with grammar. It was with light. I still remember one word, loifal, the people. We sang it when we were afraid or when we hoped. To make us feel, Lord, even by God. What did Lingua Ignota look like? Imagine Latin, but stranger. Over 1,000 unique words, each glowing with mystery. Guns meant God. Zuens meant angel. Loifal, the people. But there were no full sentences, no grammar rules. Just fragments. Sacred names. Hildegard wrote them beside Latin texts, like whispers between the lines. Scholars still debate. Was it meant to be spoken, sung, or only understood in silence? Perhaps it wasn't meant for us at all. Perhaps it was meant for the divine, and we were just allowed to overhear. Most languages are tools. We use them to buy, to warn, to argue. But Lingua Ignota was not a tool. It was a vision. Hildegard described it as something revealed to her by divine light. Not built, but received. A language not for logic, but for awe. It's like a relic, fossilized emotion from another realm. You don't read it, you feel it. That's why no one has learned it in the modern sense. It resists analysis. It invites reverence. Like a hymn with no melody, only silence. Can we decode it? Scholars have tried. Linguists, historians, theologians, all puzzled. There is no Rosetta Stone. Only Hildegard's glossary of invented words. Many linked to Latin, some to German, and others to nothing we know. Some say it's an early conlang, a constructed language. Others believe it's a spiritual code, not meant to be understood, but experienced. Like glossolalia, divine speech beyond logic. That's the paradox. The more we analyze, the more it slips away. It's a language that demands faith, not fluency. A puzzle with no edges. Why was this language born in a convent, not a university? Why through women, not men? In Hildegard's time, female voices were rarely written down. But within the abbey, they found ways to speak. With songs, with colors, with dreams. Lingua Ignota was more than rebellion. It was creation. It was sanctuary. Hildegard didn't fight for space in the male world. She made a new one. A space where language didn't need permission. A sacred tongue, born in silence, by those long denied the right to speak. That's power. That's revolution. Why invent a language no one else speaks? Maybe because silence can be suffocating. For Hildegard, the convent was both prison and sanctuary. Within its walls, she couldn't preach, but she could sing. Couldn't write sermons, but could write visions. Lingua Ignota wasn't just communication. It was liberation. A way to name what had no name. Ecstasy. She built a world where she could speak freely, even if no one understood. Sometimes, freedom isn't being heard. It's daring to speak at all. In many traditions, to name something is to control it. That's why gods had secret names. That's why witches spoke in code. Hildegard knew this power. When she named God Agons, she wasn't translating, she was transforming. Naming gave shape to what was formless. It turned mystery into presence, the unknown into the known. Lingua Ignota wasn't just language. It was a spellbook, a liturgy, a defiance, a woman writing her own scripture. Not in Latin, the language of men, but in something holy in hers. In the 12th century, women couldn't hold pulpits. Their thoughts were filtered, their writings edited by men. But Lingua Ignota slipped past the gatekeepers. It didn't ask for permission, it simply existed. In a world where even language belonged to power, Hildegard carved out a space beyond grammar, beyond doctrine. It wasn't protest. It was presence. This was not a cry for help, it was a song of sovereignty. A secret that needed no approval to be sacred. Today, only fragments remain. A glossary, a few pages, echoes. And yet, her voice still haunts us. Not because we understand her, but because we feel her. Every time we search for words that don't exist, to describe loss or joy or God, we are speaking lingua ignota. It reminds us, language is not just grammar, it's soul. And sometimes what cannot be translated is what matters most. What if language isn't meant to be understood, but to be survived? What if it's not for others, but for yourself? Hildegard wrote Lingua Ignota in silence for decades. No one taught it. No one spoke it back. Still she wrote, some wounds are too deep for common words. Some truths can't be spoken in borrowed language. So we invent. We whisper. We write, even if no one listens. And maybe that's the point. To speak, not to be heard, but to remember who we are. Hildegard's voice, old and calm. I never expected to be understood. Not fully. I wrote because the visions burned inside me. Because silence became heavier than fear. They said I was mad. But madness listens to angels too. I didn't write for fame. I wrote for the soul. My own, and those who couldn't speak. If the language lives, even in fragments, then perhaps the silence wasn't wasted. Maybe you've spoken lingua ignota too. When you had no words for your pain. When you invented a phrase just to stay sane. When no one could hear you, but you still sang. It's the language of those who refuse silence. Of those who write in the dark. Even when the world doesn't read. Hildegard gave us more than words. She gave us permission. To speak. To sing. To invent. Even if no one listens. Especially when no one listens. Whisper it. Your language. Your name. It's not forgotten.